welcome to the GameFront podcast number 11. We're doing this one a little early this week because you guys might have heard there's like some turkey or something going on later on this week. Exactly.
Sorry, I still got one running around.
I'm your host, Ron Whitaker, Senior Editor of GameFront. Joining me today, Deputy Editor Phil Hornshaw.
Hey.
Features Editor Ross Lincoln.
What?
And from the secret GameFront volcano lair, Mitchell Saltzman, video producer for GameFront.
Yes, from the volcano lair.
Isn't that just your apartment in Bermuda?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
and as you may notice, the part of Mitchell is being played by the guy from Leprechaun. So.
Warwick
Davis. Yeah.
Yes, I know. So today we've got a great show, hopefully, lined up for you. We're going to talk a little bit about Game of the Year contenders and how we kind of don't think there are any clear-cut winners in that right now. We're going to talk a little bit about next-gen consoles versus our buddy, the PC. And then we're going to spend a little time talking about some old franchises that we'd love to see new life breathed into. And then I think we'll close it out by talking a little bit about the holidays, what we're planning on playing to sort of round out the year since there's not a whole lot coming out in December.
Oh, and don't forget the Xbox One, which Mitchell has had a chance to.
That's right, the Xbox One. In fact, I tell you what, let's start with that. Mitchell has
My turn already.
Gotten his hands all over the Xbox One. He's done unspeakably obscene things with it, and he's going to tell us all about it.
Hey, now, Ron, I thought we were clear. We weren't talking about that.
What part of 30 yards away at all times is not clear?
Well, the problem with 30 yards away at all times is I'm pretty sure the Kinect won't pick you up and they can't listen to what you're saying.
Yeah, that's true.
Aim it out the window.
Yeah. So, Mitch, tell us what
Yes.
you think about the Xbox One.
I like the Xbox One. You know, here's the thing. Like, it's a great piece of hardware, but you always have to keep in mind that you paid an extra $100 for it compared to the PS4. And it's very familiar if you had an Xbox 360 in terms of the Kinect. Like, the Kinect is cool. It works about 85 to 90% of the time, but man, those 10%, that 10% of the time where it doesn't work is just really, really freaking frustrating.
Like,
for
when doesn't it
example,
work? Yeah, go ahead.
For example, me and James were recording a video, and I was introing it. We were saying we were playing Killer Instinct for the Xbox One, and as soon as I said that, it thought I said Xbox, go to TBS. And it switched over to the TV functionality, and it went to TBS. So I can just see that being a nightmare playing, with friends in the same room, and
Wait,
or me just doing walkthrough videos.
Hold on for a second. You have TBS on your basic cable package?
Yes, I do.
I actually have a serious question, Mitch. I've wanted to know this ever since it came out, and I haven't gotten a chance to mess with the Xbox One. So, if you're using the speakers on your TV and you're playing online, and somebody hollers Xbox One off, will it turn your Xbox on?
That is a great question. I have not experienced that yet. But funny story. I didn't realize that the Kinect acted as a microphone for online games. So I was playing Killer Instinct against someone, and at the start of the match I said, Xbox, start recording. And the guy was like, dude, it's Xbox, record that. And I had no idea that he could hear me, so I was really embarrassed.
Did he really get patronizing to you? Like you're like, it's pronounced, I don't know, I'm trying to trying to think of something, but no, never mind.
Idiot, it's Xbox, record that. Come on. Get with it. No, he was actually super cool about it.
It's like, whatever, Grandpa, it's LOL, not LOL.
Yeah. Get off my yard.
But when he did say that, the Kinect did not pick up, Xbox, record that and start recording right there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't know. It's a good question.
It just seems like would be the fun way to troll people.
Sounds like we need a test. I mean, you guys should make a video, really. You and James should just
link
up in some kind of get in a lobby and just yell shit at each other's
Yeah.
Xboxes and see what you can do.
But
For real,
but
like
also,
just spend 5 minutes doing it.
Let's talk
but
about.
also one of the things is that when you say Xbox turn off, it doesn't actually turn it off automatically. First it asks you. Well, it wouldn't matter. You just say Xbox turn off. Yes. Because you have to select, would you like to turn off or, etc.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, someone.
Oh yeah, I was just curious. So obviously, as it turns out, the hot, awesome story that GameFront broke during PAX is mostly true, right? I mean, all the TV functionality, you don't have to have an Xbox Live Gold membership to get that. It's right out of the box, right?
No, I do have an Xbox.
Right.
Live.
So you can't really.
Yeah, so I'm not positive, but yeah, it seemed like it wasn't tied to Xbox Live.
Nice. Oh, how do you feel about the TV aspect of it? The thing that Microsoft clearly wanted to be the takeaway from their debut of the console.
Yeah, it's not something that I would say go out and buy an Xbox so that you can watch TV while playing video games on the same screen. But it's a cool feature if you have the Xbox. It's nice to be able to snap to whatever channel and then snap back to video games. It's all very seamless, and it's a neat piece of hardware. But once again, you have to. It's definitely a better piece of hardware than the PlayStation 4, I would say. But
Really?
then you also have to remember it's $100 more.
Yeah.
Well, what specifically?
What's better?
I don't mean to be so obtuse. I just my understanding is PlayStation 4 graphics are much better than Xbox.
Well,
One.
when I say the hardware, I mean like the software OS, like the interface of Xbox as opposed to the interface of PlayStation. PlayStation's interface is very plain, kind of boring. Some of the things are kind of hidden in menus that they probably shouldn't be hidden in. And yeah, it's a nicer, cleaner interface, I think, on the Xbox.
That's good to hear, because one of the biggest problems with the Xbox 360 is that its interface got progressively worse from launch day to, now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Though still never as bad as PlayStation 3's interface.
see,
That's the worst.
I would disagree. That's just me.
You would be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a
I don't
word
know
for
if
people
it's-
like you, Ron. Infidels.
Yeah, this from a guy that this is from you, Ross, the guy that plays inverted. You're
Yeah.
dirty
First,
and don't
yeah, but
talk
all
to
the
me.
best people play inverted.
Mm.
History will
Disagree.
prove just like history
Hitler
shows
played
that,
inverted, Ross. Hitler
Yeah,
played
look,
inverted.
just like history shows that a disproportionate number of geniuses are left-handed, it will eventually show that a disproportionate number of geniuses play inverted. So there.
Yeah, because they're not very good at games. They're
Ouch.
really smart, though.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right, yo.
big takeaway, Mitch. I mean, the Xbox One, should everybody run out and buy one right now?
No, I mean, I don't think that's the case for either of the consoles. Here's like the bottom line. I think in terms of games, the Xbox One has a slightly better launch lineup. I really like Dead Rising 3. I don't know if you guys have gotten to play it. I think that game's great, and I love Killer Instinct. I think if you're a fighting game player, you really need to download at least the free version of it and just. Because what's really cool about the free version of Killer Instinct is that it's the full game just with one character. So you have all the modes. You can play online. You can, if another person has extra stages, you can play on those stages. And yeah, I think Killer Instinct is fantastic. Forza, if you're a car person, I don't think you can go wrong with Forza. As far as the PS4, like Killzone didn't do it for me. I know Phil Owen gave it a glowing review on GameFront, but I don't know. Phil,
I know,
you
right?
played
Like-
Killzone, right? What do you think?
I mean, it's okay. Actually, the multiplayer is a lot of fun. I've had a really good time playing it online. But the single player, like I've had trouble getting up the interest in pushing through, especially that first mission. I'm like, I don't care. I keep
Yeah.
getting hounded by guys because every time you set off an alarm means a million people come after you. It's just frustrating.
Yeah,
I don't know,
and then,
but I need to give it more time. So
yeah, I mean, Resogun, in my opinion, is the standout, the PS4 launch.
yeah, but how many times can you play that game over and over again?
True.
Mitch,
It's like Geometry
Wars.
Wars.
Yeah, that's true.
As long as you're willing to keep on trying to improve improve upon your score, that game will last you as long as you need it to.
That's true.
So yeah, I mean,
I guess the takeaway for both consoles. We knew we talked about PS4 last week with Phil, and now Xbox One with Mitch. I think the takeaway for both of them is, unless you really have some burning need to have the most bleeding edge hardware sitting under your TV, you could probably wait till after Christmas.
Not to mention the fact that if you really do have a need to have the most bleeding edge, if what you say is true, there's already a platform for you. It's called the PC.
Correct. Indeed. And we'll get to that in a little while. But right now, I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the lack of clear-cut Game of the Year contenders this year, and that'll probably make some people mad. So we'll be right back. All right, we're back, and we're going to talk a little bit about Game of the Year, because it is coming up on that time when, we are contractually obligated as a gaming site to have like end of the year awards or something. And
here for that.
This year I'm pretty sure that Game of the Year is going to be a hard one. There's not really been a clear-cut Game of the Year contender as far as I'm concerned, and I know...
have you guys played Alien Colonial Marines? Because let me tell you, that game is amazing.
Well, I will say this. I think that for best dancing character in a video game, that alien, the little dance it does through there, that's definitely...
Oh, you guys haven't finished Knack. You don't know what dancing is. There's a blocked scene during the credits of Knack that you can't record that is all just Knack dancing.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like the end of a Pixar movie, basically.
So as you can probably figure out from this discussion, if this is what we're talking about, there's not a really good contender for Game of the Year this year. But I mean...
It's weird because it's like there have been several
big
games that came out this year that...
Huge games.
Huge, gigantic. I mean, this is the year that you had Grand Theft Auto 5 go make $1 billion in less than 3 days, and
Saints Row 4.
Exactly. There have been, and it's like all of them. Like Saints Row 4, I feel pretty I feel pretty good about nominating it when we come to time to do this. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I'm nominating it because it's kind of like the 2005 Oscars, It's like, well, it's really good. I feel like Saints Row 4 is truly better considered as part of Saints Row 3. It's definitely a great game. I love it, but I just don't feel the kind of like last year. I felt like it was almost. I mean, like Borderlands 2. I definitely 100% say was certainly in my top 3 contenders for what my favorite game of the year. Fez was last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what else, but it doesn't really matter. Other games came out, we like them, but this year it's like think about like games that should have been amazeballs but weren't, like SimCity.
Oh man, the list is huge,
right?
Oh yeah,
it's seriously like Beyond Two Souls,
God,
The Last
yes.
of Us, BioShock Infinite. I guess you could throw Ghosts on there if you wanted to. Call of Duty Ghosts.
Yeah, I mean,
I honestly think
Batman.
I feel like the more interesting award, so to speak, than Game of the Year this year is most disappointing.
Yeah.
Because most disappointing is going to be hotly contested.
That's a race. Yeah. Hugely.
I mean, I'm looking back at last year's Game of the Year awards that we did. I think everybody knows Walking Dead was our Game of the Year.
Oh man. Hard to beat.
Borderlands 2 was in there. And then Dishonored,
Word.
XCOM,
and Tribe.
which is kind of, I mean, I feel like XCOM is my game of the year again. Like, I hate
Phil, it's an
Enemy Within
expansion
is
pack.
so
Come
good.
on.
Enemy Within is, but I mean,
I
it's
almost
just
feel like my
it's just a
game.
good game
Oh,
to go
sorry,
back to. It's just fun to go back to that game at the end.
Yeah, I almost feel like my game of the year is going to end up being Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep.
Amen to
Right.
that.
Which,
Love
if
that.
anyone out there listening hasn't played it, but you have Borderlands 2, it's worth go do it now. It's one of the best DLC expansions.
It's actually worth playing while you listen to the rest of this podcast. So we'll
Yeah.
go start up Borderlands 2, and we'll be right here when you get back.
I think you guys need to play Borderlands with me. I'm not a Borderlands fan. I never have been, and I
It's
think it's just because when you play it alone, it's not very fun.
Oh well,
And
have you had a chance to play Borderlands 2 yet, Phil?
I have it, and I played a good 3 or 4 hours, but again by myself. The only
Right.
time I've played with other people, I've been like way under leveled, and I just get so bored. And they're like, okay, we're gonna go back to the town, and we're gonna spend 20 minutes trading weapons with the guy at the window. And it's like, oh god, can you just kill me?
I
Like,
I
would
like
much
the
rather-
way that looting is a lot more fun. Borderlands 2 is, especially once you get past the first, like, definitely the first hour or so is you're on a rail-ish,
a little close.
trying to make your way to Sanctuary. I find it on subsequent playthroughs, and I play it a lot. Perhaps that's the most tedious part of the game, and I still don't find it that tedious. But once it gets going, good lord,
Is it
just,
ever good?
well, and especially once you've acquired enough badass points, because your badass points transfer between characters. So
Yeah, it's
every
account
time
wide.
every time you start a new game, your new character inherits all of your badass points. So every new game, you're a little bit more powerful. And so I'm at the point now where I'll start a game with a new character, and I'm just like cutting through everyone at the beginning of the game like butter, and it's hilarious. Yeah, but co-op is a lot of fun. We should do it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, hell.
I mean, we could, there's so many games that are gonna be thrown out there when the game
Oh,
of
yes.
the year comes up. Grand Theft Auto 5 is one. And
That one's going to win everyone's awards, and it's kind of disappointing that it's going
I'm
to.
frustrated by that as well.
And the thing is, it's like there's so many things about that game that I like, and but I've been Phil and I, Phil Hornshaw, who's here, Phil Owen, y'all know him, and myself, we were talking about this the other day. Or actually, I interrupted a conversation we were having just to express disappointment about it. We happened
That's hard to believe.
well, in this case, Phil Owen mentioned that he had found a specific landmark that we drove past on our way back to our apartment, that he found it in Grand Theft Auto 5, and it just reminded me of, like, in the weeks since that game came out, and especially after Grand Theft Auto Online kind of took the bloom off the rose in a big way, I've been increasingly less and less interested in revisiting Grand Theft Auto 5, and it's weird because it's for a completely different reason than my disinterest in Grand Theft Auto 4, which came pretty much the second I beat that game,
Right.
That game is like dazzling people with amazing environments, and it's a really cool recreation of Southern California. It's got some great dialogue and blah, 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 but really it's a lot more repetitive than people are giving it credit for. There's like very little to do once you pass a certain point in the game.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I mean, I'll tell you,
There are not enough heists to keep me going in the story.
Word. Not to mention the fact that they nickel and dime you to the point where it's like you barely earn any money until the very end of the game, by which point, what's the point in spending any of it?
Right.
well, I mean, I think for me at this point right now, unless something, and you have to forgive my memory because, I always forget something important until we do our nominations, but I think my game of the year right now might be Metro. Last
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You're a huge Metro fan, though. I haven't actually played that one.
I
so-
love the
Me neither.
series. I loved Last Light. I did the Last Light review. I couldn't wait to play that game, and I couldn't wait. I could go play it right now, and I'd be perfectly fine with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really, if you are into anything like that atmospheric, post-apocalyptic kind of a thing, it's dark. It's a very dark game. It's got a couple of things in it that I could do without, but at the same time, it's probably the most successful game in my mind of the year. And I mean, but here's the thing: I only gave it an 85. So
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm looking at a game that I gave an 85 and going, "That's my game of the year," the year has not been very impressive.
Yeah. I mean, there have been games that I've really enjoyed playing. I had a really great time with Outlast, for example.
Right?
Yeah.
But
I'm still enjoying the hell out of Saints Row 4.
yeah, right? But I mean, I don't know. Or Gone Home is another good example. Gone Home is a good time. I really enjoyed Gone Home. I don't know if I can call it game of the year. I mean, there are so many caveats to discussing what Gone Home is, and the way that game engages you or doesn't necessarily. It's very much like that's a game of the year that's not for everyone kind of thing, and that doesn't really. I don't know. I have qualms about saying that that's the game of the year when obviously there are people who are going to go to Gone Home and just like not find it interesting or compelling at all.
Well, I think
You know,
that
I
was
say
the
own
case.
it. I say own it. I would have made Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless. I would have, if I had been on the Oscar nominating committee and able to vote for all the movies by myself. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind would have gotten Best Picture and Best Director that year. So
Yeah, well, and I don't mean that in such a way that, you know, a game has to be some level of accessible or anything like that. But I mean, we're talking about a game where you don't really do a whole lot. Also,
Right.
you know what I mean? And I'm not to get into a discussion of what is a game because I hate that.
We're not going there.
Yeah, but at the same time, from a level of interactivity, you don't interact necessarily with Gone Home all that much, you know,
Right.
other than to kind of stumble around and read things.
Well, I mean, I think
And
that
I don't know. I mean, there's
I think that happened last year to some extent, though, when a lot of people, not just us, made Walking Dead their game of the year, and I think there were a lot of people that were sort of put off by that because, you know, Walking Dead is an adventure game. It's not your typical, you know,
That's
mass
true.
market game of the year, and I think that sort of thing happened last year too, and that sort of speaks to what we're talking about right here, which is that, you know, there's a lot of parity in the gaming space, and the AAA games are not living up to their billing all that much.
Yeah, I would say that. I feel like, I mean, we've been talking about this for a while now, but this slow or maybe fast even decline of AAA is just becoming more and more palpable every year. I feel like,
Yep.
you know,
Well,
I mean, we had seriously, I can't think of a AAA game except maybe Saints Row, which again I didn't play. I can't think of a AAA game this year that came out that I was like, yes, unadulterated success. You know, even the games I was most excited for, like BioShock or The Last of Us, are just so weighed down, I feel like,
Right.
by the
Well-
conventions of what AAA is supposed to be, that they fail in where they're supposed to be innovating. It's, I don't know. It's,
Let me ask you
Well,
this.
go
Let me
ahead.
just throw this out to all you guys. You tell me what you think. Do you think it's a case of AAA failing, like getting worse, or is it a case of AAA staying the same and all of our expectations becoming much broader?
I think
that's a philosophical discussion. If you
I'm willing to answer it though. I think yes, there is something to be said for our expectations are rising and not being
Too
met.
old, man.
But the reason they're rising is because that has been rewarded in the last decade. You know, things have.
That's true.
We talk about this a lot in this podcast. There was that period from 2008 to around early 2010 where it really looked like video games were finally getting it in terms of like, how do you tell like a real story in an interactive format? And then that has just sort of not really. There was some spectacular failures to follow through with all that progress that was made, and then a lot of backsliding. There's also, I mean, endless iteration is, I think, killing creativity in the gaming space. I would like to see no more Assassin's Creed game for like 4 years and let Ubisoft and that team, or maybe some completely new people, fund something completely new that we haven't heard of before. Though, obviously, I don't mean to sound like it's like, and a giant corporation will save us. I just
No, but it would be nice to see them take a risk instead of Assassin's Creeding all their other IPs, which is what's happening instead.
Right.
It's like
exactly.
they're democratizing Assassin's Creed elements into everything because apparently that's what
Well,
everybody
and
wants
the
to
other
pay
thing is, I think that we hear a lot from people in the gaming, in the AAA industry especially, where they say, well, the cost of games is just so high that
I
we
know.
can't afford to take these chances.
Let's
Why
play
are the
them a
cost
million
of
tiny
games-
violins.
Why are the cost of games so high? Because you insist on every game including, you know, fully faceted multiplayer features and, you know, all this. Just make a freaking game. You know,
well,
make
it's
the
one of
game
those.
you wanna make.
It's one of those things that seems difficult to really believe when you consider just how much money the gaming industry generates. Where is all that money going? You know, to go back slightly, it's like Saints. Phil brought this up just a second ago. I love Saints Row 4. I think everyone listening to this would benefit from playing it. The reason that I'm having such why I'm so ambivalent about whether I could say it's a pick for game of the year is because it's kind of the same reason I wouldn't nominate Fast 6 for Best Picture, you know? Partly because
You're
Fast
lucky
6
Owen's not here to hear that.
well, I mean, Fast 6 is an amazing movie. It does everything it's supposed to do expertly. It has incredible fan service. It's super fun. Saints Row does a lot of things right, and it's so much fun, but it's like it's a sequel to a franchise that it's definitely good for fans of the series, but it doesn't necessarily elevate gaming in a way that I would want my.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I keep bringing up Borderlands 2 is I really think that Borderlands 2 did something truly special with the writing in that game, and the DLC only sent that. It's dialogue writing and like the jokes and stuff like that. It's not like a transcendent work of fiction or whatever.
As an aside, Ross, I want to ask you, completely unrelated to this discussion, but since you bring up Borderlands 2, you do know that there's new Borderlands 2 DLC released today, right?
Oh, right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, Headhunter or whatever.
Uh-huh. And for those of you that are Borderlands 2 fans, fans of the game and the DLC, you'll be excited to know that this one stars Mr. Torg's super buff grandmother, Grandma Flexington.
Hey.
Which, I'll tell you right now, I will buy this DLC just to see the vocal performance on Mr. Torg's super buff grandmother.
Yep.
So,
Mitchell, what are you thinking for Game of the Year?
Yeah, you played some
so
of this.
it's funny.
Yeah,
this
you
whole
play-
time,
play a lot
this
of
whole
stuff.
time, I've just been like really quiet. I'm like, I don't know, guys. I thought 2013 was pretty good.
Well, that's
Well, it
I
was pretty good.
struggle with that because I did feel like 2013 was pretty good, but I can't single anything out.
You can't put a
Because I think
finger on
Well,
it.
here's the
breaks
thing,
down.
because I mean, you guys are all well aware that I love BioShock Infinite, so I can't
Yeah,
join
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
discussion of why all the AAA games were really disappointing, because I thought BioShock Infinite delivered on pretty much all accounts, and it's definitely a nominee in my mind for Game of the Year. I also thought Last of Us was great.
Yeah.
And as far as here's the thing, I think 2013 was kind of the year where well-known franchises kind of fizzled out. Gears of War fizzled out.
Yeah.
I think Saints Row, even though it ended on a high note, I think I don't know where that series is going to go from here in terms of how it's going to top itself. And what else? There were some other ones that were like the fourth iteration of the series
Well,
that came out.
Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's
God of
Creed,
War.
yeah. God of War. Ascension is perfect. Ascension is like the epitome of like, it was a great game, but God of War kind of
it's
feels
over
done
now.
at this point.
Yeah, God of War is over. I'm pretty sure. You're right.
Should be over anyway.
Well, let's hope.
But as far as like Game of the Year nods or it being difficult, like I have clear thoughts of what should be Game of the Year. Like I do think Grand Theft Auto 5 deserves a nod. Tomb Raider I think was fantastic.
Tomb Raider, I keep forgetting Tomb Raider. It came out so long ago. I loved Tomb Raider. I had a great time
Yeah,
with Tomb
that's
Raider.
true. Thanks for bringing
And-
up Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Rogue Legacy, which I don't know if you guys played. Rogue Legacy was incredible. I absolutely love that game, and also I kind of forgot about it, but I don't know if you guys have played Volgar the Viking. That game is another incredible indie game. Like for me, 2013 is the year of kind of fizzling out AAA games, and then like the meteoric rise of like really good indie platformers.
Yeah.
At least in
No,
my
I'll
mind.
buy that for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
and I'll say this: I haven't played Volgar the Viking, but I had a great time watching James try to play.
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you. The Last of Us, I think, is an interesting case as far as this whole discussion is concerned, because if you were to put a gun to my head, that would be high on the list, and yet I struggle with it so much because I love that game for many reasons, and I dislike it for a number of other very important reasons, I think.
In about
Yeah,
2 weeks, I'm going to put that gun to your head, just so you know.
What's that? Yeah, I know, right?
2 weeks.
I'm gonna have to. I feel like there are things I need to go back and play that either it's been too long or I never got around to. Like I actually posed this question on Twitter the other day, and people were like, "Well, what about Brothers, Two Sons?" And I was like, "Oh shit, I guess I didn't play that, did I?" And so I should probably go
It's
do
like
that.
that
Or
one
Stanley
too, I
Parable.
Yeah, Brothers was good.
Yeah. I intend to do that for sure. And Stanley Parable too, I have installed and ready to go, and I just haven't gotten to it. Another game I really need to get to before we get to the end here. So yeah, I mean, but as far as Last of Us is concerned, I don't know. I feel like if there's a game that suffers from AAA-ness, it's that game, because I was actually reading over my own review again the other day just to try to remember how I felt about it. And, for as great as it is from a storytelling standpoint and for characters, the story itself is pretty bog standard if you know anything about, or if you spend any time reading or watching zombie fiction. It's basically Zombie Story, the video game. Like, we've had this story before. But the characters are amazing. And it falls down in the gameplay, it like gets weakened by AAA-ness almost.
There's a problem of gameplay and story segregation where you go from, pretty richly drawn character moments to now you're a mass murderer, then it doesn't necessarily fit.
God, the mass murder. But yeah, so I mean, like, for as much as I really liked Last of Us, as we were talking about this before, it is. I feel like it's also a contender in the race to disappointment. Like, I struggle with that game.
That's kind of the issue I've been having. Like, all of these games that have so many things to recommend them, they are, I don't know, falling short of in the way we just described. And it's I don't know if I just expect too much now or what, but it all feels like a big repetitive mishmash of video game the game being released over a year-long period.
It is. I don't know. I mean, it's. I've had this discussion with myself. I've been struggling to put my finger on this for seriously months, possibly years.
Too,
yeah like been... I mean, I've talked about it in here. Am I too old for this shit? Is that the issue? You know what I mean? Like,
you're having a Sergeant Murtaugh year.
I really don't think it is me. I think it's games. I look back fondly on things like Gears of War. I was just thinking about this just now.
Oh, God.
No, for real, the original Gears of War, I did not expect a positive game out of that game.
To be fair, Gears of War, I did not play the original Gears of War on 360.
It's a bummer. Oh, don't talk about
the
the PC version
Gears of War on PC.
Yeah.
And it was atrocious.
Well, that's not fair to that game.
No,
because...
I'm not claiming that it is. But wow, the PC version, that was bad.
I remember the launch or the early days of the 360. I remember Gears of War coming out. I remember the day. I remember being like, Gears of War is going to be dumb. And I was there with my college roommate, and he and I went to the store, and we're like, I guess we better get it. We had friends coming over for the weekend. We bought Gears of War and seriously played it wall to wall that whole weekend because it was amazing. And then it invented a genre.
Yeah.
And now we can't dig ourselves out of that hole, try as we might. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I guess I think the overall arc of that discussion is, I don't think it's us. I think it's video games. and those moments exist. They've happened before. They will happen again, hopefully. We just need to get to them.
I think we could probably put this section of the podcast to bed because
let's talk another hour about it.
Hey, Mitch must have something to do that he doesn't want to do. But no, what we're going to do now is take another quick break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about the next-gen consoles versus the PC and how that all shakes out. We're back. Okay, we're back. Now that we've shaken all that Game of the Year stuff off our shoes, we're going to talk a little bit about the next-gen consoles and how they stand up, or don't, against the PC, which most of us, I think, would call that our platform of choice anyway. Personally, I'll say this, and then I'm going to drop it over to you guys. That's one of the challenges for consoles, is that no matter how hard the companies work on building them, how much money they spend in R&D, or how much time they spend getting the parts and pieces together to build them. The reality of the situation is that by the time a console hits the market, like the Xbox did last week or the PlayStation before that, that hardware is 1.5 to 2 years old. because it's been through the R&D process and the
Yeah.
proofing and the testing and all the things that it has to go through to make sure that it is the stable box that people want to buy. And that entire time that all that is going on, PC hardware is just advancing constantly, exponentially. I mean, I'm not running a top of the line PC by any stretch of the imagination right now, but the hardware that's in my tower that's almost 2 years old is stronger than anything that's in either of the next gen consoles. I mean, and it's not close. So, I'm not sure that there is, as far as the hardware goes, that it's even fair to compare a next gen console to a PC.
I honestly don't think it is. I think there's an aspect of it that is the R&D, but I think also, if you're growing up as a console gamer and you're in the console market, you have an expectation of what consoles should cost. And I think when the time comes for a new console generation, the thought isn't let's make this console have the best tech, the best the most expensive graphics card, all that stuff. The thought is, what is the best that we can make this console? How powerful can we make this console while still keeping the cost of it down to a consumer, a console consumer standpoint, or
Right.
$500 or less, really.
Well, let me ask you a question.
So I think that's really the challenge.
Let's frame it like this, and this is a question I've always wanted to get an answer to. I've never been able to. People always say, well, console gaming's just cheaper, right? Which I don't think is entirely accurate, but console gaming's just cheaper. It's easier. It's easier than ever to be a PC gamer now, and it's cheaper than ever to be a PC gamer now. And how many console gamers do not already own a PC?
Yeah, but how many of them have
Probably
a
not.
decent PC?
Well, that's
I mean, I had a PC for years and it was garbage.
Here's my
I'm
point.
trying to play games.
Here's my point. Let's just say that you're a console gamer. You're going to have a PC to browse the internet, send email, whatever it is that you do. Write 5,000 word articles for GameFront.
I'm sorry. Okay. I had to talk about the whole console. It's an involved piece of machinery.
Oh, Phil, ladies and gentlemen, Phil would write 4,000 words about the stylus in the 3DS.
That has not yet happened.
Only because we don't cover Nintendo. But no.
You dirty Nintendo haters.
My point is this. Is it really more expensive to be an Xbox One gamer? If you're going to have a PC anyway, what's the minimum investment that you'd put into buying a new computer today if you were just going to use it to browse the internet and send email?
Well, I'll tell you this. When I bought a laptop not long ago, before I finally broke down and built a PC that was worth a damn. Actually, what the hell did I even pay for that thing? I can't remember, to be honest. So I've had laptops for the last few years just as a writer, not as a PC gamer at all, because that is a very recent development for me. But, I mean, really, those computers that I had for a long time, even working for GameFront when we first made the PC shift, were not good. They were not for games, and there is a barrier there, definitely. I mean, we want to talk about how cheap it is, but you have to make a conscious decision, at the very least.
I think where it's breaking down, what the point I'm trying to get to is this: if you're going to have a computer, even if you're just going to write stuff for GameFront on it, you're going to spend between $400 and $500 to buy that computer. By the time you buy, the tower and the keyboard and the mouse and the monitor and all those things,
right?
So, are you better served to then turn around and invest an additional $500 plus games into an Xbox One, or $400 plus games into a PlayStation? Or are you better served to take that $500 and instead of buying a $400 PC, buy a $900 PC?
Well, I think that the thing to consider when you're considering the two groups of potential purchasers, the consoles are plug and play situations. You don't really have to think about it very much. When you're a PC, when you use a PC, when you really put your money and your time into your PC, it requires a lot more just active involvement on your part. You have to do a lot more maintenance. There's no warranty. There might be warranties for specific items and stuff like that, but it's not like if something goes down, it's easy to fix. You're going to be doing all the troubleshooting. There's some
Yeah,
potential.
Well,
there is a certain level of knowledge. I mean, I got the PS4 out of the box, plugged in and running in about 5 minutes.
Right,
and
exactly.
That didn't happen when I built my PC. Even if I'd bought the PC and brought it home, it wouldn't have been that situation. And you do have to be more knowledgeable no matter what. I mean, that's...
Yeah, it's kind of the reason that, like, everybody, depending on where you live, most people need to have access to a car, but not everyone's going to be working on their car on the weekend, souping it up, that kind of stuff. And never mind, like, hot rod drivers and hot rod. Do they still use that term? Apparently, I just time traveled from 1958.
Wow.
NASCAR, whatever.
Well, I think the point that I'm making is that we are living in a more plug-and-play PC age than we ever have. And there are more options available to people who want to be PC gamers to buy a PC that is simply take it out of the box and plug it in and it runs.
Well, and I think if you want like next geniness, then this is the PC is probably the place to go. I mean, if you really want to push the envelope of what you're going to get out of games, that's if there's a breakdown, the two places where there's a breakdown, I think, are one in playing with other people, especially locally, not online, obviously, but it's harder to play with friends on the same screen on a PC, just by the virtue of the setup.
I think it's becoming harder to play with friends on the same screen in games anyway.
I mean, no, that's in general that's a trend too. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But the other thing is interfaces, like the PS4 controller with the addition of the things like the touchpad. Those peripherals are not they're not pushed on PC as much, if that makes sense. It's on the PS4, it's there, so you have it for developing. It's already in your toolbox, so it's easier to access. But that doesn't really, I think, happen as much with the PC. But then again, at the same time, you get things like the Oculus, which I think is.
Well, and you also get things like a keyboard, so you have a lot more. You're not limited to the buttons that are on the controller.
Oh, sure, but a keyboard is old as far as interface goes. It's not a cutting edge kind of.
Well, yeah, but the
changing the way things work
is old too, but it still works.
Yeah, I know, but it's not
still the best solution to the problem. But my point is not. Yeah, I'm not. And my point is not to run down a gamepad, because gamepads are great for the things that they're good for. You know what I mean? Every tool has a use, and I mean, I like the gamepad. Even as a hardcore PC gamer, which I think everybody will agree that, that's one of the things you could point a finger at me and say, and I wouldn't argue with you. I still want to play. There are still games that are better on consoles. Madden, FIFA, any kind of a racing game, Forza, Need for Speed, any sports, any racing, platformers are, if you try to play them on PC, you end up playing games like Braid, which makes you want to punch somebody. And
well, I think that, like, unless you're talking about competitive multiplayer, the keyboard controller difference on PC is not really. I mean, because I use a gamepad for any action game that I play on my PC.
I feel like the keyboard and mouse control scheme is no longer a valid, complaint against PC, because it's so easy to just plug your Xbox controller into a PC now.
Right.
See, Mitchell, I don't even look at the keyboard and mouse control scheme as being a negative.
Well, they could be, though, for certain games.
Some people definitely see it that way too. It is a weird way to play games sometimes.
I mean, let's keep in mind now that there was some testing done when they were going to do cross-platform shooters back. What was it Shadowrun? No.
Well, yeah, wasn't it the people playing keyboard and mouse had an advantage over people playing with controllers?
A mouse. It's a mouse, really. The mouse is the advantage.
Right.
Sticks every day.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like that difference. That's really where the distinction is going to be happening for most people.
Yeah, it very much is the mouse versus the analog stick, and I think that's where it breaks down. It sound like, is that a spittoon?
Yeah, what happened?
Someone had a sound effect board?
No, I just threw something down and it into the trash can near me, and I didn't realize it was going to be like. And now the dragon lady comes into the room.
But no, I mean, my only point here is to say, that people like Alienware are making desktops now that are running $700 that are capable of playing all sorts of games. The X51 for $850 will play. I mean, it blows away what you're capable of doing with a console. Now, what are the other positives for playing PC games? Well, we're going to find out tomorrow because I feel like we're going to see a Steam sale tomorrow, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Brace yourselves. The Steam sale is coming.
Yes, I've hidden my wallet away, and then, like, in the summer sale, I thought, well, I'll be smart. I won't keep my credit card by the computer. And then
I just want to say, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, go ahead.
No, well, I was gonna say, if you want to talk about the big reason to play PC games over console, I think it's Steam. Like,
Oh yeah.
bar none. Like, there is nothing that the console can do to compete with Steam.
Well, and I think
not just Steam, but also Desura and Get Games, and there's so many good ways to get awesome games on your PC
and get them
for cheap,
and
for
get
like
yes.
next to nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Plus, even though Sony is making some inroads into the indie market, PC is still sort of the indie platform.
Man.
You get games like Monaco and Rogue Legacy. I was trying to think of the one that Mitch was talking about earlier.
People were making a big deal about, and I was too. Like, it's great that PlayStation and Sony are opening themselves up to indies, but they're just the exclusive platform for consoles. They're not like PC still gets all those games that were shown at E3 for Sony.
Oh, yeah.
And I think in many cases they come out first on PC.
Yeah.
And if you really want to be on the cutting edge of what new stuff is coming out and what people are doing, the place to be is on PC, and like on Desura and just like ModDB and IndieDB. Like that's where the next wave of new cool things is happening. Well, and you can go and sit on it and go look at it and play it right now, most of it.
Not to mention in the era when everyone is constantly, and rightfully in most cases, complaining about being nickel and dimed by DLC, there is an alternative to being nickel and dimed by DLC, and it's the modding community, which creates amazing add-on content.
That was
some stuff you couldn't believe exists for every game under the sun.
Hell, you could just sit and play Skyrim mods pretty much for the rest of forever, or Half-Life mods for that matter.
Yep.
Well, one of the great examples of all time for modding on the PC is a little tiny mod that you might have heard of called Desert Combat. Came out for Battlefield 1942, and that I can remember the day that the number of people playing the Desert Combat mod actually surpassed the number of people that were playing Battlefield 1942. So there were actually more people playing a mod than there were playing the game that the mod was based on.
Yep. Well, I mean, I feel like that even earlier than that, the Counter-Strike is the perfect example of that.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think it's important to note that the mod community today is different than the mod community was then. Because there's less support from developers, there's not as much availability of mod tools, and the mods that we're seeing now are more things like Phil said, there's the Skyrim mod that turns all the dragons into Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh
yeah. That's the sort of thing we see from modern. You're not seeing full conversions in every game like we used to.
Yeah, that's true. But even a lot of the games that we're seeing now that are really interesting are like Half-Life 2 mods, really.
Right.
And then Unity engine stuff too. I mean, if we're a lot of cool things going on with the Unity engine, and it's just popping up for free on PC.
Yeah, I heard I heard something the other day. I don't remember where I heard it, but I heard something about Sony putting Unity support on Vita.
Oh man!
And I said, if that happens, wow. So, but yeah, I think and again, I think the way to close this out is to say simply, find the platform that you like the best and play it, but don't disregard the PC as a gaming platform just because you have a next-gen console.
Or just because you've never played on it before.
Like, just because
that was definitely my issue up until recently.
Yep.
And
all right, well, I think we're going to put a ribbon on that one. and move on, because we've got to talk about breathing life into old franchises and what Ross has to say about that when we come back. All right, we're back, and prior to the podcast starting today, Ross and Phil and Mitch and I were talking a little bit, and Ross apparently has been playing the new Ratchet and Clank.
Yes, I have.
Which has made him very excited, and made him think about bringing some old franchises back to life. So, Ross, I'm going to let you set this one up.
Well, sure. Okay, so anybody who's been playing Ratchet and Clank, or maybe not, so familiar with the existence of Ratchet and Clank, it started back in 2002. The series is, one of the first, really, modern, action platformer kind of games, whatever. The typical Ratchet and Clank experience is, it's kind of like Banjo and Kazooie style. I don't know why I'm being so pedantic about this, but just trying to describe. You have your little robot friend on your back, and you find weapons, and the weapons upgrade, and you have fun, lovable cartoon adventures and all that. There's this thing that people consider to be the sort of core Ratchet and Clank experience, and for PlayStation 3, when the Ratchet and Clank series returned for it, they released two very amazing games, Tools of Destruction and A Crack in Time.
Both of which are really good.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing, and actually managed. This is, of course, Crack in Time came out during that period we were talking about earlier, when the writing in games was suddenly starting to get very excellent. For whatever reason, and I've met somebody who used to work for Insomniac, who told me, I'm obviously not naming him, but this person told me that A Crack in Time apparently didn't really sell at all. We'll never know because of the stupid transparency problem, but that might explain why the next two Ratchet and Clank games were really crummy social games. You had All for One, and then a Full Frontal Assault, which is like a tower defense game, right? And those games landed like a wet fart, and people generally do not like them. And so now Insomniac is returned to the classic Ratchet and Clank format. This game is super fun, by the way. It's short, unfortunately, which makes me sad. The game is sort of an epilogue to the future duology, and
but it's also half the price though. So it's half the price for half the game, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. The disappointing thing is not that it's so short, specifically, but that this is what they're reduced to. After having squandered the Ratchet and Clank brand with two very crummy, basically tie-in games, they finally returned to the format that the game should be. They've crafted a pretty interesting story, and they have a pretty interesting story that really just gets us back to what it is that we fell in love with the game for the first place. But it had to be shorter. It had to be basically a expansion pack sized game rather than a full length game. And I presume that if this game doesn't sell very well, it's going to probably mean the doom of the series, which would be sad. But one thing that yeah, me too. But the one thing that I can't help thinking while I'm playing is they've made Ratchet and Clank fresh again. They've returned to the roots of the series. While there's some really cool new things, they haven't broke what wasn't fixed anymore. They've added some cool new elements to it. In fact, they've taken a page from indie games for the parts of the game where you control Clank. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a segment of the game. So the thing about the game is it's kind of like a Legend of Zelda game where there's this other dimension that you can occasionally find access to, but biological entities can't go through it, so only Clank, who's a robot, can go through it. And when you go into this other universe, it turns into a two-dimensional side-scroller where you play around with gravity as a means of getting around instead of your traditional walk and navigate and jump over stuff. And it's all of which brings us back to the topic, which is breathing new life into an old franchise. They've managed to make Ratchet and Clank feel really fresh again. And it got me thinking about how many because video games are anything if not unoriginal, and the whole industry is as bad as Hollywood is for just endlessly iterating properties until they completely run out of steam. And I think we can all think of some. So I guess my question for the group would be, which franchises do you think are being run into the ground, either through bad decisions or just a complete lack of originality within the franchise itself? Maybe the developer is just churning them out because of the payoff or whatever. that could stand to have some life breathed into them, and how would you suggest they do it?
Well, absolutely. Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed. They need to give those developers a break. This is ridiculous. Like, those games are not. It's not like Call of Duty where it's just like, you slap on a couple different levels. It's a short 6-hour campaign, and you do a couple of small adjustments to multiplayer. Like, those are huge games with expansive open worlds that are finely detailed, and it's just ridiculous to think that they are able to churn those out every year.
I'm gonna throw this out there, Mitch, and I'm sure that Phil will go with this. I say we do away with Assassin's Creed for like 3 years, and at the end of that 3 years, Ubisoft gives us a new Prince of Persia. Huh?
That would be great. I would love to see a return of Prince of Persia.
Well, so long as it's, not like the Prince of Persia games we've gotten.
Right. It's got
the last 10 years or so. God.
It's got to be a good Prince of Persia. That's why we're giving them 3 or 4 years to make it.
How do you feel about Prince of Persia, Mitch?
I love the Prince of Persia. Or, well, you mean like the
new ones?
Well, okay, so I loved Sands of Time. Warrior Within was a waste of time, and I thought that what was the third one?
Two Thrones.
Yeah,
Two Thrones was pretty good. I like Two
Thrones.
Yeah. And then there was the reboot, and then
there's hang on, where are they? I'm pulling them up because I bought them all, of course.
The reboot was not great.
There was it was just called Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
And it was cool looking, but there was very little difficulty behind it.
Right.
What about Forgotten Sands?
Forgotten Sands, which I actually have not played Forgotten Sands.
It wasn't bad.
Installed it.
It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great.
But we're saying wasn't bad, and we're talking about a game that, at least with Sands of Time, was just like mind blowing.
Yeah.
Transcended.
Sands of Time was one of those games that sort of sticks with you forever.
So
I'm actually about to replay that game because I've been talking about it way too much lately.
So let me ask, how do you, given the power to do so, fix Prince of Persia?
Man, I don't know.
I don't think you need necessarily to fix it. Just go back to what Sands of Time was and build off of that. I mean, just forget all that nonsense that you tried to squeeze into the franchise in the last 10 years.
You know what happened with Prince of Persia is, first, Warrior Within is way too focused on combat to the point where it's not fun. And Two Thrones is kind of all over the place. It's really heavy on QTEs, back when QTEs were like first in vogue. The new Prince of Persia gets some of the environmental puzzles right, but loses the difficulty. And then I didn't play Forgotten Sands, so I'm not really sure. But they sort of bridge/blend into what's going on with Assassin's Creed, where you kind of lose the environmental puzzles, the quick ability to move around. Those were the things that made Prince of Persia so great, was the mobility, but also the challenge that came with that mobility. It wasn't just you can run all over everything. It was, you have to think about your movements and be really sort of economical with them and pay attention to what you're doing. I remember leaping accidentally off of things into oblivion so many times in the Prince of Persia reboot, and same thing with Assassin's Creed, really. And so it comes down to a fundamental level of building puzzles and making them control well. So
yeah, I think a lot of the time the biggest thing to do in terms of breathing new life into a game franchise that is like dying right now is just give it some time. Like, I would be so excited if there were a 2-year gap between each of the Assassin's Creed games. I would have been like so excited to play each one. Because it's just year after year after year of this, basically the same game mixed up in a different way, it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good point. I mean, like we talked about, Phil, when we talked about Assassin's Creed 4 on the podcast 3 weeks ago. You end up with some cool activities that you do over and over again until they're no longer cool. And I think what that boils down to is you have, like Mitch says, you have a team of guys that are working on a game. They have a year to get it done. Let's come up with 6 cool things that we're going to do in Assassin's Creed 4. Okay, we're going to take over forts, and we're going to sink ships, and, blah, blah, blah. And now, okay, great. Those are our 6 things. Now, put them all over the map, and let's go to and let's print it.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about this before.
Really...
What the
Sorry,
hell is
I've got
that?
something going overhead. Yeah. Sorry. I live in an air traffic lane because I'm very close to a couple of hospitals, so I get some serious helicopter traffic right over my apartment.
Yeah, we get them here at the house too. Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
We talked about this before we started recording, and I just want to bring it up. And I just want to suggest Metroid could be easily brought back and have and saved. I think from the mess that it became over the last decade. I know we all disagree over that.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, well, I'll say this: Metroid Other M is the prime culprit. I recognize.
Okay, yeah.
I recognize
I like how you
that
used prime in that.
Right.
Speaking of
prime, I do recognize that my problems with the Prime trilogy have more to do with format, the switching genres from, true action platformer into a first-person shooter game, which I don't think suits the Metroid series at all. But you guys enjoyed them, and I understand why people enjoyed them, and I don't think they ruined the experience for me, but I don't think they ruined the games themselves. But Metroid Other M, obviously the problem there is Nintendo has, this is going to get me yelled at by a lot of readers, I'm sure. But I'll say it, Nintendo hasn't had a decent game in like 12 years. And the last good new game that Nintendo unveiled, I think, I don't like the Mario Galaxy series at all. I think every Legend of Zelda game that's come out since Wind Waker, which I did like a lot.
Wind Waker.
Yeah, Wind Waker's great.
I love that game.
I do too. Every Zelda game since then has sucked a lot.
Ross, come on, if you're gonna go there, let's just go there, right? Every Zelda game since Link to the Past has gone downhill.
I like Ocarina of Time a lot. I think that
oh
game
man,
is
that
Majora's
will get you
Mask
burned at the
is
stake,
totally
my friend.
Fun.
You just spoke ill of Ocarina of Time. That just isn't done.
Yeah,
in
that
polite
game is
circles.
dope.
How do you do that?
As an aside, Ross, and Phil, you guys need to come over to my apartment and play some Super Mario 3D World. Maybe that will change your mind about
let's do that.
best an actual good Nintendo game over the last 12 years. Because I think 3D World is amazing.
I didn't mean to pick that up, but
let me say this for Nintendo. I reviewed Metroid Other M, and I actually liked it.
Ugh.
But the biggest drawback for Other M was, like Ross said, that it was first person. If it wasn't for the fact that it was first person,
Other M wasn't first person. Other M was 2.5D.
Well, but it also went into first person a lot of the time because you had to switch from playing with the Wiimote sideways to trying to shoot. Oh god, it was terrible.
Stop! Right? It makes me sick.
I know.
But
Not to mention that they completely fundamentally changed the
character,
what it was. Yeah, they take her from awesome bounty hunter to raw recruit. They don't let you gradually find and explore to get these new weapons.
It was a weird game. I think Metroid Other M would have been much better received if it didn't say Metroid on it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think it would have been. I thought the game itself was pretty good. It's just the fact that it was a Metroid game. I think held it back a lot.
Well, yeah,
I felt that way about the Bureau.
Yeah, also, yes, good example.
Fair enough. But they did call it a Metroid game, and they thus tarnished the Metroid brand by making what might have been a pretty okay new IP a very genericized sort of neutered version of what people expect from Metroid.
I'll tell you,
Nintendo needs to take that franchise back. That's a first thing. Nintendo needs to stop letting outside developers poop all over their games. They need. Well, I also think they need to fire Miyamoto, but that's just me. Anyway, go ahead.
No.
I said it.
Wow, there's so much blasphemy going on.
There's so much stuff right now that's making me really angry. I have no outlet for it.
Yeah, Mitch, every time...
Go ahead and rant for a few minutes.
Every time they talk about Nintendo, Mitch gets angry. So
I call you dirty Nintendo haters.
Yes, you do.
I love Nintendo so much that I have a Nintendo tattoo.
This is true.
I just think that as much fun as Nintendo's like handheld systems can be, most of the games that are really big successes on them are basically updated clones of games that were great 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Every game that's been a big hit on a Nintendo system since the SNES has basically been a knockoff of a game that was on Nintendo or SNES.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean,
well, the last new franchise they released was Pikmin, which is I love both Pikmin and Pikmin 2, but why did it take them 11 years now before they finally came out with Pikmin 3? Who knows?
Well, I mean, think about it like this, though. Nintendo figured out if we make a Mario game and a Zelda game and, insert games here for each console, we're going to be successful. So, I mean, as long as people keep buying them, which, I mean, I quit buying them years ago.
That train has finally stopped. I mean, Wii U has apparently only sold like 1.5 million copies worldwide since coming out.
Right.
I've heard a lot of people evangelizing the Wii U lately, especially in the face of new consoles.
I wonder how many people. I think Nintendo made a fundamental miscalculation with the Wii U in that they looked at what they did with the Wii and said, that's an audience we can build on with the Wii U, and they neglected to see that the audience that bought the Wii is not the kind of audience that goes out and buys a brand new console just because there's a brand new console.
Well, the audience that bought Wii now has smartphones.
Yeah, or tablets or whatever.
Right, yeah. They accurately predicted a market that they have no product for. So,
But no, I think that there are tons of Nintendo games that could have new life breathed into them. I just don't know if Nintendo's able to do it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I want to see. And it was almost a reality, and it's gone, and it's not going to be now, but I want to see somebody breathe new life into a Star Wars game that doesn't suck.
Yeah.
Or a Star Trek game that doesn't suck. Well, 1313 is dead, Mitch. It's dead.
I thought someone picked it up.
It's dead. We put a flag on it. It's dead.
Oh.
They didn't release
possible. I still remain somewhat convinced that elements of 1313 will end up being made by Electronic Arts.
Well, that's possible, but they'll end up being the single-player campaign in Battlefront 3.
Yeah.
So...
as far as Star Wars and Star Trek goes, I'm not really a fan of like licensed games. I mean, games set in those universes. It would be great to see. I think Star Wars has been mined to death. I actually am now very unpositive about the upcoming Star Wars movies, and I think Star Trek has been kind of ruined as well. I would rather see No,
I know it's just.
When I come to Star Wars, I want to say this. Yes, Star Wars has been mined out a ton. But there's so much material out there that has never been touched. Everybody wants to center everything around the movies. And I think that's where there's some mistakes being made because...
Well, most of the games take place in the pre-movie universe, like old Knights of the Old Republic, the Old Republic,
that's only
Battlefront.
2 games, right?
Well,
yeah.
No, Battlefront is concurrent.
Yeah.
You're right. Battlefront is concurrent.
Yeah, because Battlefront is all the major battles of the movies. That's all it is.
The only games that took place prior to that were KOTOR, KOTOR 2, and the Old Republic.
Yeah.
My bad, then. I suck.
Well, also, Dark Forces is sort of
Dark Forces. You
sort of weaving in and out, right?
Well, there's also The Force Unleashed, which takes place in the interim between the trilogies.
Yeah.
Just such a cool idea. I still stand by The Force Unleashed.
I thought the first Force Unleashed was really good. The second one, not so much. But
no, the second one is terrible.
I would just love to see. There's so much out there in the universe of Star Wars, stuff that's never been touched. There's hundreds of novels, and they go all the way back like 20,000 years, and up into the future like 20,000 years, and yet everything has to be set in like this little tiny window. It's sorry.
Someone should just do like a fantasy game. Don't tell them anything. Just have it take place in a generic fantasy planet, and have it be about somebody gradually learning to become a wizard. And at the end of the game, the reveal is that he just discovered the Force.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh man.
And it ends on like I will call myself a Jedi, and then you're like, oh, it was a Star Wars game all along.
And then the fanfare hits. Dun,
Yeah,
dun, dun,
exactly.
dun.
Yeah, dude. Well, that's what we were saying about Aliens the other day. Remember when we were talking about doing an entire sim building game where you're like colonizing a planet, and then 3/4 of the way through you discover a derelict ship, and the whole game turns into aliens at that moment,
Again,
and
I
dials
would
you down
help.
into a first-person perspective,
Speaking
and you
of
have to.
franchises that could be that could easily be that need desperately for life to be breathed into them. Let's talk the fact that SimCity could easily have been the game of 2013 had it been a good game, I guess.
Had it not been bad.
Well, I mean, God, couldn't we say? Well, hang on. Never mind. I'll come back to that point.
Well, I think that the one other series that I think needs new life breathed into it is Call of Duty.
What? No.
Hey,
Call of Duty is
Did
great.
you play Black Ops 2?
I did.
Come on.
Black Ops 2 was a great step in the right direction, and then
Yeah.
Ghost was like 10 steps back in the wrong direction.
I would
Well,
actually propose an alternate category of games that need to be just put to rest,
Put down.
put out of our
Blue
misery.
Factor.
Shot in the back of the head.
Yeah,
I'm
take out.
way less negative about
Eric-
Call of Duty than like.
Well, having played every single Call of Duty that's ever been made, I can say that it's gotten progressively worse for the most part.
No, except yeah.
Except
I mean,
what?
well, once you get to about Modern Warfare 2, the downward trend begins.
It starts with Modern Warfare
ways.
1, I'd say.
I disagree. But that's
COD4 was probably the peak of that series.
Because Modern Warfare 2 perfected Modern Warfare 1's multiplayer.
All right, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to invite... the readers are invited to comment down there and tell me how wrong I am. But Call of Duty's multiplayer has never been any good.
I like it.
It's never been any good. It's always been bad. It's always been inferior to the multiplayer in a game like Battlefield.
Oh, you just want to talk about Battlefield.
No, I'm just saying that.
It's
Battlefield's not as
oranges,
successful
man.
as Call of Duty. That's all there is
I
to
don't
it.
care how successful it is, though. What I'm
No, as
multiplayer-
accessible, not successful.
Oh, I thought you said successful.
Accessible. It's hard to pick up a Battlefield game and be any good at it and figure out what the hell to do and learn to fly helicopters and not get freaking stomped on people you've never seen and who never appear on your screen.
And then
That's
who
what
yell
sucks
at
about
you
Battlefield.
for sucking
It's
for-
much easier to play Call
Right?
of Duty where you,
Mitchell knows.
where you
I know. I
stand
got
in
that
place
back,
and
Phil.
throw grenades until you run out of grenades, and then you
You have one grenade.
call out
or maybe
somebody's
two.
mom, and then you
No, I mean, you could turn all that sound stuff off. But the point of Call of Duty, the reason that Call of Duty is good, is because you can pick up a Call of Duty game, and even if you get trounced every single life in that game, you respawn so fast that it doesn't matter. You get to continue to play. And there are very few multiplayer games. Here, I'm going to go on. Let me get a soapbox out and get on top and talk about Call of Duty for a minute. The reason Call of Duty is so good is because very many other multiplayer games suck at allowing you to play and pick them up and learn how to play and have a good time. There are a lot of multiplayer games where like you get trounced by somebody who's way better than you, and then you just sit there in a loading screen or a lobby screen waiting to respawn, not knowing what the hell you did wrong. You never learn. Call of Duty, you're so back into the action so fast that it's a great game for. I mean, there's a reason so many people put so much time into it. It's because you can demonstrably improve yourself by playing, and you actually get to play. There's not a lot of downtime in that game. That's why people like it so much.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
I'm perfectly happy to let you feel that way about it.
I'm just saying.
But for me, I can't play Call of Duty's multiplayer. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like being in a ball pit at Chuck E. Cheese with a bunch of 4-year-olds.
I don't know, man. I feel like those things that people like to bitch about Call of Duty are peripheral outgrowths of its success. They are not indicative of what the game is itself. I mean, I just like playing with 12-year-olds all day long too. I mean, don't get me wrong. But
let me say this: I actually reviewed Battlefield 3 and Modern Warfare 3 at the same time, and I found myself in this really odd place where I was like, okay, Battlefield 3's campaign is kind of stupid. You know, it was dumb. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. it made about as much sense as Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3's campaign did, but that's neither here nor there. But what I found is that I found myself like a lot more critical of Call of Duty's campaign for being bad than I was of Battlefield's campaign for being bad. And I think it's because having come from the old Call of Duty games, I come to Call of Duty for this really good campaign.
Yeah,
And
no, I mean that's where it started, really. Let's be
bolted
fair.
on. And then when I went to Battlefield for this really good multiplayer. And I didn't care about a campaign. Hell, until Battlefield 3, there was no Battlefield campaign. You just had the same multiplayer maps, but with bots running around on them that were controlled by the computer, so you could get ready to go play online and get shot by people. So, I get what you're saying, but I really think that Call of Duty could do with the same treatment that we're talking about Assassin's Creed getting, which is take a year off, come up with new ideas, do something different. Let's get the series back to where it was when it was.
I definitely agree with all that. Oh, absolutely. The reason that Call of Duty continues to sell well is because that multiplayer continues to be exciting to play.
The reason that Call of Duty continues to sell well is because Call of Duty is the premier shooter on consoles.
But why is that? It's because you can plug it in and play online. Most people don't even get to the campaign, or at least a significant number of people never play it alone. It's because the multiplayer is so good. The multiplayer is so good. And, I mean, the
multiplayer is great on a console.
That's definitely part of it. But if you were to directly compare Battlefield 3 and Modern Warfare 3, the reason I didn't get into Battlefield 3 is because I would jump into a game and then I would have to march across a map for God knows how long, 5 minutes it felt like, to find someone to fight. And that was if I didn't get killed by somebody strafing me overhead in a helicopter by the time I got there.
Right.
Whereas Call of Duty, you're in a fight, and you're in a fight, and you're in a fight, and you're in a fight, period. I
totally understand that, but that's, to me, that Call of Duty thing is not a positive. I like Call of Duty 4 was probably as good as the single player was in Call of Duty 4, the multiplayer was that bad. Because literally you spawned in and died. There was one map that I can't remember the name of it, but it was the map that every server played. And I would literally log into a game, die 10 times before I ever got to take one step. Because the map's so small.
I don't know which map you're talking about. I remember small maps. There are a few maps. But that's why Modern Warfare 2 is an improvement.
About that. The newer Call of Duty's gotten better about the maps being so small that it was just spawn in, start throwing grenades, and get 6 kills.
Sure.
So
I'm just going to interject and say that we could devote an entire podcast to this discussion.
Yeah, that's what I'm just about to say. Phil and I tend to get a little carried away when we talk about.
All I'm saying is everybody loves to hate on Call of Duty, but there's a reason that people like it, and it's because it's fucking well made. That's all there is to it.
Way to swear there, man.
I was getting upset.
All right, stop. All right, now. We're going to go away one last time. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to be playing for the rest of this year, because nothing new's really coming out. And we're going to pretty much call it after that. So we'll be right back. Our final segment here, we're going to talk a little bit about the rest of the year. And, Black Friday's the end of this week, and that usually signals the end of the game release calendar for the year, because nobody wants to try to get something out after that. Phil, you took a look at the rest of the year this year. Was there anything?
Oh, man.
Tiny Brains is coming out, isn't it?
Tiny Brains.
What'd you say, Mitchell?
Wolf Among Us is still coming out. Probably this or next week.
That's
the second episode.
Yeah,
I still haven't played that.
Because Telltale never tells you. They're just like, oh,
surprise! Here it is.
I know.
On Monday,
I love that, by the way.
Wolf Among Us will be out tomorrow. Have a nice day.
Yeah. Thanks for doing that, Telltale. But it's actually coming. There's definitely Wolf Among Us on Vita is coming out soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Tiny Brains. There's a couple other things. I know, I love that game. I love that game. We're actually going to be doing some streaming coming up a couple weeks here, I
Yeah,
think.
so definitely stay tuned for that. Because Phil and probably Mitch are going to be streaming some Tiny Brains, and we might even have some devs in there playing with them.
Yeah, we good time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
On that,
We've been talking to them
First
about it.
I heard about this. So
Yeah.
that's exciting.
We're still in the planning phases of getting it done, but I think it'll be like maybe second week of December, like
somewhere
8th-ish, I think. But anyway,
Well,
Tiny Brains is coming out. There are a few other PS3. I mean, there are things, but there's nothing that's like blowing the doors off as far as I know.
Right.
So
I mean, what? Let's let Mitch go first because Mitch always probably plays more games than all of us. Mitch, what are you going to play for the rest of the year? What have you not played yet that you're looking forward to catching up on now that the game release calendar slows down a bit?
Oh man, I don't even know. I mean, I wanna beat Dead Rising 3. That's probably the top of my priority list. I need to beat. It's pretty much all just beating games that I left in the past because I was too busy going from walkthrough to walkthrough. I gotta beat Wonderful 101. Man, I don't even know. I was gonna play Tales of Xillia.
ooh, good one.
Yeah, have you played that?
No, but I mean to.
I also still need to beat Ni no Kuni. So those damn Japanese RPGs, man. That's pretty much it. That should get me through the end of the year.
That should take you through to Christmas. So let's turn it on there and talk to Ross for a minute. Ross, what about you? What's your
Yeah. The problem is that like horrible sense of like being sunk into quicksand on Wii that's sort of come over me about games in the last few months. It started around the time when I started realizing that as positive as I was about GTA 5 after I reviewed it, I was every day I continued to play it after beating it, I was less positive about it. I guess I'm going to continue to play Ratchet and Clank into the Nexus until I'm done playing that. I'll probably finally get around to playing Payday 2 with Phil.
That's exciting.
Yay!
Yeah.
I want in on that too.
I'm going to catch up on the Borderlands 2 DLC, both TK Baja and the new Grandma Torg DLC pack. And probably a whole lot of some random games on my 3DS. And maybe I'll see.
The Zelda game on the 3DS. I gotta play that too.
Yeah, let me know how that is. I've heard so many up and down things about A Link Between Worlds, and honestly, the bad taste in my mouth left from Skyward Sword is so bad. Like I'm still like reluctant to play Zelda. To be honest with you,
it's a completely different style of Zelda, though.
I know, but I'm still like just, do I even want to go back? Plus, I love A Link to the Past, and I don't really need an improvement on A Link to the Past, so I don't know. Sorry, I'm being a naysayer about it. But...
Oh Lord. Well, that brings us around to you, Phil. What's your end of year gaming schedule?
Man.
Obviously, it's not Skyward Sword.
No. Well, The Wolf Among Us I really should get to, now that you guys mentioned it. I also have the Swapper that I wanted to play, Stanley Parable.
Yeah.
I know, right, Mitchell?
So good.
I know, I need to do that. I need to do that like post-haste, too, because if we're going to be talking about good games this year, then I need to play the games that I know that are good and I haven't played. But yeah, I reinstalled Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. I reinstalled The Forgotten Sands. I just reinstalled Mirror's Edge the other day.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm just going to play old games, basically.
They're good games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'm thinking about that. Oh, but really, if we're going to be honest, what I'm probably going to end up playing is XCOM. So
I believe that. I think you and I, made it pretty clear last week how we felt about XCOM. So
it's easy to pick up and it's hard to put down. So
yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. I'll tell you, I don't know. The rest of this year is going to be kind of odd for me. I mean, I've got games that I want to play, but it's like, I don't know. I really want to spend a lot of time playing Payday 2. I love that game. I love the first game. The second one's even more fun. And I I want to play some more Rise of the Triad, guys. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not even joking. I want to get back to playing Rise of the Triad.
I didn't like that game.
What?
I didn't like that game.
Don't you have like a fighting game to go play or something?
Killzone.
Fine,
Or not
I'm gonna go
Killzone,
play Killer Instinct.
Killer
God,
Instinct.
I know you loved Killer Instinct, didn't you?
I love Killer Instinct. It was great.
And then like I saw on Twitter today that Brian Fargo said that there's going to be a beta for Wasteland 2 in like 2 weeks.
Whoa!
And like that might take up some of my time. Definitely, because that's a game I'm really looking forward to. And you know who else is looking forward to that is Ben.
Yeah.
Ben
Yeah.
is like clawing at the walls to get to that game. So, and like Phil, I'll probably spend some time with XCOM just because kind of have to.
Yeah.
Oh, poor you guys. have
Yeah,
to play
it's
XCOM.
Terrible. I hate that.
Preventing me from getting other things done, let's be fair.
Yeah, that's also true. I mean, there are other things, you know, I'm sure that, unlike everybody else in this call, I have an 8-year-old son, so we play things together a lot of times too, so, you know, that'll take up some time as well. A lot of that means Minecraft and maybe World of Warcraft or something like that, so. But all in all, it's definitely a catch-up time of the year. So I think we've talked long enough.
I think so.
Sorry, guys.
But this is a special expanded
This is the
Thanksgiving
special
turkey edition.
Thanksgiving Turkey Trot edition.
You are all going to have turkey comas after this is over.
GameFront podcast. Yes, exactly. We recommend listening to this podcast before you eat turkey because you will definitely not stay awake through it if you listen to it after.
Or after, if that's what you are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
You're looking to take a nap.
Yeah. If you're looking to take a nap, you probably don't even need the turkey. But seriously, thanks everybody for listening. We hope you do have a wonderful Thanksgiving if you're in America. If you're up in, Canada like CJ, it might not quite. Thanksgiving's already happened in Canada, I
Right.
believe.
It
We
happened.
don't
Enjoy your regular
celebrate-
life.
We don't celebrate Thanksgiving here in the volcano fortress of GameFront.
That's because you are in your own country.
Yes.
Right.
My own island nation.
Yes. Yeah. See if you can keep James in line out there, would you?
All right, I'll try.
All right. So thanks everybody for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. The iTunes link is right down there, and don't forget to head over to the YouTube channel. Visit Mitch and James.
You can see me.
.com/GameFront. You can also catch the podcast on our YouTube channel now, and you can send us an email if you have any suggestions for topics or questions, or if you just want to yell at me for not liking all those Zelda games. It's podcast@gamefront.com.
Podcast. Okay, I'm gonna be sure to send you some hateful letters.
Thank you, Mitch. Anyway, thanks. Everybody have a great holiday, and we